So let's take a look at it quickly. So on the engine website, right here on the elevation page, this has been revamped. Just went live yesterday. Here's the data products, right? Most of you are probably interested in the LAS point cloud files, but the uncompressed is there, and there's a DM and Hillshade. And thanks to TEP, John Tarosky specifically for, setting up the LAS and the DM. And then we've got some other rasters in there and the break lines and all the supporting documentation. So there's a couple ways to get this data. We don't have any of it streaming yet. We're still working on that, but you can use an interactive web app to download a small amount of tiles, right? So this looks just like the Northwest Project app, if you're familiar with that, right? You kind of zoom in on where you want to go and you see this tile grid and all the classified LiDAR tiles are available in this grid pattern. So if you just want a couple, you can click on them and download, and it'll tell you the file size, right? I could save it to my machine. If you want to get a bunch, you can click the little select tool and select a bunch of tiles, and then go to the table, and you'll have all these download links, right? So 30 individual tiles. This top one is 114 megabytes, and here's the link. I just click on the link and I can start to download. One more thing that's cool here, if you wanted to, you could actually export this list of 30 into a CSV file, a table, that you could then use with like a bulk downloader if you wanted to. So you had 100 files, you didn't want to click them all. Go get a free download utility like UGET or something, and you could do that. So that's live. You can go check it out. All those tiles and all this content are hosted in AWS. So it's not on our servers at New Jersey Office of GIS. If you want to get all this content, we make that available for download too, right? So we're not distributing this stuff on hard drives anymore. We had to stop that at the beginning of the pandemic, and so now everything's in the cloud, and we're making it available for download. And the way you can bulk download this stuff is because it's in AWS, they have a command line interface tool, a free tool that you can download and install. You just go here, follow instructions. And then we tell you the actual commands to use. You can download just the LAS. If you want the uncompressed, you can download the uncompressed. It's just going to take longer. Or you can download the whole project if you want all those data products. It's all there and available to you. So let me show you how this works real quick. So I got a command prompt here on my machine. And really, we designed this so you can pretty much copy the command here and paste it in. Now this is going to do a dry run download. It's not actually going to download anything to my machine. And the instructions explain that. And this is the local directory it would copy it to if it was going to run. And I have that CLI installed, and I just hit go, and it'll connect to AWS. It'll connect to AWS. Maybe it won't. Let me do it again. This is what I get for doing live demos. I should know better. So it'll connect up there, it'll go to the AWS bucket, and it'll grab all the files and start copying them down to your machine, right? So for those LAS files, there's almost 3,100 of them. Now that was a dry run, I didn't copy anything, but the beauty of this is it'll run unattended, and it could take hours, it could take overnight, but you can do it whenever you want. You don't have to send us a hard drive and wait, and do all that rigmarole. So check out the elevation page. We've updated it. We've got the same ability for the Northwest collection that's been out there for a year. The same bulk download CLI instructions if you need to do that. And we're slowly going to be adding more bulk download instructions for the other elevation data sets that are up in AWS. So look for that. So that's the elevation page. couple other things I wanted to mention. I'm going to stop sharing. Just a teaser. So we are going to release that hosted parcel service that I mentioned earlier. And we are also making our imagery collection available for bulk download. So look for that soon. That'll include an updated Info Warehouse app to allow you to download selected tiles. So lots going on with our team at NJOGIS. Just wanted to share that with you. If you guys get questions when you're trying to do any of the elevation stuff for South Jersey, just shoot us an email. I think that's all I have.
All right, great. Andy, is there anything else from OGIS? Doug?
Yeah, I actually meant to mention the search. If you want to look up Daniel's Law, the easiest way to find the bill is with the bill number, and that's Assembly Bill 1649. If you want to see the details of it, there is another way to find it if you know, which I don't understand how to navigate through the maze of legislative stuff, but the bill number works. Also, I just wanted to let everybody know we are recording this meeting, and that'll be posted, once we get it processed. That's all we have, I believe. Doug didn't have any announcements. Dave, is somebody going to cover the election results?
Yes, all election results after a little right before the presentation.
Okay.
Is there anyone else on the executive committee? Anne-Marie, anything from DEP or?
Yes. Hi, my name is Anne-Marie Falkowski. I'm from the state constituency group. So the NJDEP will be updating our map service URLs because we are migrating to new servers. So this means anyone that's using our data in AGO or any other applications will need to update their web maps and applications to point to these new URLs. This change is going to take place sometime in early 2021, and we will be posting more information on our website and sending out emails through the forums with more details. Once we're ready for you guys to start making those changes. And that's all the announcements I have.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else from the executive committee have anything else to report? All right, on to the task forces, geodetic task force. Edith?
Just a couple of announcements. We're suspending task force activities for a while, probably at least a year, due to the delays that have been announced by the National Geodetic Survey. They won't have datums and coordinate systems out for quite some time yet. One thing that isn't being delayed is the deprecation of the US survey foot, which will occur on December 31st, 2022. NGS will continue to support the current tools that they have that people use to work with stuff in state plane systems that use the US survey foot, but they won't be doing any updates to any of that. So the bottom line for GIS people is that deprecation is coming, and in future years it's going to be confusing to people if you don't explicitly state in your metadata about a data set which foot it's using if it's in feet. So I recommend to everybody to don't just depend on the formal coordinate system definition in the data to convey that information. Make sure you write about it in English words that it's US survey foot data. Of possible interest to surveyors, the deadline for submitting GPS on benchmark data to be included in the transform tools for the new systems is December 31st, 2021. And for anybody to whom this is all news and you haven't got a clue as to what we're talking about, if you'd like to get more information, NJSPLS is hosting a webinar on January 27th about the datum changes. There is a cost for that, but it's fairly modest. That's it.
Thank you, Edith. On to elevation. Roger?
Good morning, New Jersey. I want to thank Brian Embley for that presentation and publicizing the readiness for the South Jersey project to be used and downloaded. One activity I did want to mention in elevation is I am pursuing with the 3D elevation program specifications committee a homogenization of what I call, quote, enclosed, unquote, title was considerably different than others, creating
Roger,
we're looking
out, Roger. I think you missed a couple. I think we missed a couple things you were saying.
Yeah, we lost your audio briefly there.
that's got to
Ooh, still happening.
nothing I can do. That is something in the local internet.
Well, soldier on, I guess.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, we're trying to change the 3D elevation specs to smooth, small embayments and enclosed waters, particularly behind barrier islands. So there's a January 7th meeting to discuss that.
All right, great. Anything else?
Unless John Tarosky or Doug Schleifer want to talk about derivative data set development, I have nothing further.
All right, great.
I can say that we're working with, this is Doug Schleifer, we're working with John Tarowski of DEP to figure out what data products, derivative data products, we're going to develop. It's going to take some time. John has to figure out some things about how to create a statewide DEM from the various projects or collections that we have, and then we have to figure out what resolution we're going to develop those products at, and how we're going, excuse me, how we're going to distribute those. So it's going to take some time, I'm guessing the better part of next year, to figure all that out and get that out to the general public.
Thank you. On to the Trails Task Force. Is there anyone from the Trails Task Force on the meeting? No?
Perhaps not. I do know that that activity is continuing, and they're preparing to let out an outsourced project to do all the data transformations to pull together the submissions that they've been getting from various sources.
Okay. All right, so those are the task forces. I'd like to now open up to open discussion. Any announcements to anyone participating in the meeting today? Does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss? Tom Rafferty.
Hi, everybody. Just want to give the county level folks a heads up. We've been working with Esri on some CARES level funding sources to set up ArcGIS online organizations at the county level for emergency management use. So the notification went out to our emergency coordinators last week, and they should be reaching out to the county level GIS coordinators in each particular county. So if you want any more information about this, just shoot me an email and I'll fill you in.
Okay, great. Is there anyone else who has an announcement? You can raise your hand and I can call on you. Anyone from Macurissa that would like to make any announcements?
Hi, Dave. This is Maya Thomas, Secretary of Macurissa. For our active Macurissa members, those are members that have attended 2 events in the past 2 years. You will have received an email this morning asking you to vote in our elections for the board next year. So if you can do that within the next 10 days, the elections are open until December 28th. That would be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Maya. Charles Adamson?
Yes, this is Chip Adamson. Most of you know me. I was past president of NJS PLS. And like it was mentioned before, January, we have a seminar on the change of the international foot to the U.S. foot. And next year is going to be very active with the change in 2022 with the datum change. Everything's going to be changed at once, which is a good thing, but make sure you look for any seminars from us and any other groups, NSPS, this year. So just to give everybody a fair warning. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other announcements or topics for discussion? All right, moving on to our election results. So we had an election. We have an election every year. Usually, in the election is half of the executive board, and I'll pull up my email here. And the positions that were open were private sector, state, county, municipal, and education. And for private sector, county, and state, we only had 1 nomination for each constituency group. So for the state constituency group, Anne Marie Barkowski was reelected. For the county representative, it's Joe Smalley from Middlesex County. And from the private sector, it's Kaylin Doherty from Civil Solutions. On the education, Dave Tulloch was renominated, elected. There were no nominations in that, so the executive board has the ability to appoint somebody there. And then the municipal was there were no. I believe there were no eligible members within that group to run for board, so that for a seat, so that municipal seat will remain open and vacant. I'd like to congratulate everyone who are the new executive board members for next year, and then that was it on the election. Moving forward, so now we are on our presentation. Our presentation of the Division of Taxation's Digital Tax Map Submittal portal. So before we get into the presentation, Andy Rowan wanted to give a little background on how this all came to be. So Andy.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so those of you who have been in forum meetings for a while will remember having heard about this. It's been quiet for a while, but actually going way back, one of the very first things that I encountered when I took over the position of GIO was something that Bruce Harrison had started looking into, which was to get the whole municipal tax map process out of the paper world and into digital. The tax map regulations require that the official submission of the tax map is a hard copy product. So it required looking at changes to regulations, but also totally re-engineering the review process that the Division of Taxation uses when they have a submission of a tax map from a municipality. So it was a long and complicated process, and you can imagine that with the division staff having, essentially always done this review in hard copy, CAD and GIS had absolutely nothing to do with their work. None of them even had any experience using those technologies. So it was a real shift for them to get ready for this. And that's partly why it's taken as long as it has. But we had a committee that was formed, spearheaded by division staff, but we had a lot of participation from various different forum constituencies. We had land surveyors, we had municipal, county, we had tax people, we had municipal assessors in the group, and we had some private sector involvement too on the mapping side, to make sure that this was done, in consideration of all the various requirements for all the stakeholders of that information. And it was laborious. We really dug through a great deal of detail on how to do this, and so it's been a lot of work by all those players. And then the reason that it went quiet for a while was that the division was in the process of tooling up to do the review of a digital product, and that's really the work that Dave and Donny are going to describe for us today. So I just wanted to sort of renew my appreciation for all the effort by all those people, many of whom are on the call today. As it happens, a lot of the taxation staff that were involved in the early days have retired. It's, kind of like a Charles Dickens novel. The work keeps on going even though the people change. And in fact, the original head of the tax map team, in fact, passed away during the work. So we really have had, generations of people involved in this. So it's nice to hear that it's still approaching the finish line, shall I say. So that's the background. Dave, take it away.
Great, thank you. All right, so again, my name's Dave Kunz, and Donny Velazquez and I will be providing an overview of the digital tax map submittal portal. Unfortunately, nobody from the Division of Taxation was able to be part of this presentation today, so they have asked us to provide the overview. And I wanted to stress up front that the application is still under review by Division of Taxation. The Division of Taxation is not currently accepting or requiring digital submissions for tax map, and the training is ongoing with the staff. We had obviously COVID has put some restrictions on staff being able to get together to review. Part of the challenge is that the staff had, as Andy mentioned, the staff had nothing to do with CAD or GIS or anything for that matter digital. Everything was hard copy, and so there was a very big shift of doing that they've always done. So training is just ongoing, and the objectives of the application was to receive, review, and approve municipal tax maps in a digital format. Essentially, do away with the paper. They wanted to streamline the process, speed up the approval process, and then provide both the submitter and the staff person reviewing the map with a series of tools to help them review, submit, and again, the overall was to streamline that process. And from a GIS perspective, one of the outcomes was the need to generate GIS parcels with the Mod 4 integration straight from the tax map submission. Trying to keep that as a single line of workflow as much as possible. So there was a committee, right? So Andy mentioned the effort and the committee. It was roughly around 2007 that this committee was formed. So you're talking 10 plus years in the making. And it was made up of various staff from taxation, Office of GIS, the professional land surveyors group, municipal tax assessors, county and municipal GIS people, private sector, as well as the education sector. So we were all coming together from different perspectives, looking at how to move this mountain of effort. So some of the tasks, was to establish and recommend CAD standards, digital CAD standards up front, right? So if the state's going to require the submission of a digital tax map, the first thing that needs to be done is a standard needs to be developed, reviewed, approved, and implemented. So one of the very, very first tasks was to come up with the standard. We then from there look at what are the current regulations for submitting tax maps, and it's all it's all been written around the submission of paper maps. So what types of changes may need to be done to the regulations that dictate how a tax map is created and submitted. So a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussion on that, and then the outreach, right? So the committee even provided a presentation to the League of Municipalities, trying to provide some outreach to the industry, to the municipalities, and saying, hey, this is the direction that we think we'd like to go in, and it was important to let people know that up front. So some of the technology, and I'll let Donny get into this a little more as we go in, but we looked at, there's a lot of different technologies that went into the development of the application. In addition to all the technology and the app itself, there is an extensive knowledge base and a help system on how to submit a map, how to review a map. So a whole bunch of different type of technologies on there, and like I said, Donny will get into it a little more. But it is a web-based application. So there are a couple different user levels. There's a submitter. This is the surveyor, the consulting firm that is generating the municipal tax map for the municipality. So there's a user specifically for that and then internally there are two types of users. There's a system user who's a reviewer. That level deals with looking at the tax map, running the tools, and then there's an admin that has full control. So this is a site map of the app itself. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have that submitter or that public user, and it's not the public, it is the submitter. And the submitter can do a couple things. The submitter can look at, there's a dashboard that the submitter can access to gain an idea of where their project or their projects are in the pipeline. It also has the ability to submit sheets through that portal as well. And then on the taxation side, there are a few different more tabs or modules. There is an admin review. So that's the initial review that is done, and that's an automated, semi-automated process. You know, as Donny will get into, if there is something that fails during the admin review, it does not get it doesn't move on to the next phase, right? So there are a whole bunch of different criteria that have to be met through the administrative review, and then from there it's broken down into two or three different types of reviews. There's the actual tax map review, or the TMR. There is the BLQ, which is the blot lot qualifier. So looking at the mod 4, does the mod 4 conform to the standards? Is there a mod 4 record for every parcel on the tax map? A series of error reports are then generated from that. And then there's the railroad review. And the railroad review and the TMR, the tax map review, share the same tools, but the railroads are done separately by a different team at taxation. All right. So again, the modules. There's a submitter. That's where they set their profile, their registration. They submit. There's the help system, and then again, just an overview. There's the system user and system admin that actually deals with the user management, the system settings, and the review modules. All right. From here, I'll send it over to Donny.
Hello, everyone. Morning. Like Dave said, the application is made up of really 5 major modules or sections. We have the submitter, we have the admin review, tax map review, BOQ, railroad. Admin review is a new phase for review, and that's, you know, because we're doing everything in digital. We need a whole submission phase to, you know, check the file, the legitimacy of the file, layers, and a whole new set of checklists for that. Whenever files are submitted, because it's a digital format, we need to make sure that files stay consistent throughout the project. So whenever a project starts, they need to pass the admin review section. When an admin review passes those checklists, it moves on to the map review. Now, they may have instances where they may be in the map review section and they need, they'll put out a notification, a report that's in the system and say, you know, we need certain sheets and we need these things changed. Whenever the submitter submits those files back, it needs to follow this workflow. It needs to follow this workflow every time. Reason being, you know, we need to verify that the files pass all the previous criteria of admin review plus the criteria of map review for checklists. I'll show you that later on when I start showing you some of the checklist parts. During the admin review section, there are some two very major basic rules that before taxation even gets a notification that it's ready for them to look at it. It needs to be spatially at least within New Jersey and within the town, and it has to have at least a handful, a certain amount of parcels being able to be created. If it can't create any parcels, or it's, you know, outside of New Jersey's boundary or the town, then it right away gets pushed back to the submitter, and an email notification gets sent to them letting them know that they need to check, and it also has information about each file, why it failed. We try to do our best to you know, put as much detail as we can into the reason why it failed. since we're right now, they could have multiple projects happening at one time, so you got multiple towns. We are currently testing North Bergen, and that currently has about 261 files. And to process all them and to run through all the checklists, generate parcels for all the sheets, and create reports for all those sheets takes about 12 minutes. The way we do that is we had to build a message broker system. And we use this system to process the sheets, build parcels, send all email notifications, also handles retries. So it handles if a notification tries to get sent out and for some reason, let's say the email server is down, it will handle a certain amount of retries in the system. And it also handles all generating PDF reports. The reason we went to using this message broker system is that a website is usually sitting, to get a little more detailed, but a website is usually sitting in one process instance on a server. And you're going to have possibly multiple people uploading files, hundreds of files, and multiple files getting processed at the same time, while taxation is also working on those different projects. So to offload all of that processing, we use the queuing system. We put together this queuing system using RabbitMQ, which is an open source product or solution. What happens is when files get uploaded, in the background, the site will take those files, do some checks, create jobs out of them, submit them to the queues. Depending on which phase that project is in, we have queues for admin, map review, and whenever reports are generated, and also email notifications. Those jobs are first, the system handles saving those jobs to disk. And then what happens is we have multiple instances for each phase. So we have an instance for admin. We have 3 instances for admin review, 3 instances for map review, report tasks, and email. The reason we have multiple instances for each one is to hand over failover, and also to be able to asynchronously process these tasks. So the reason we can process 261 files in 12 minutes and do all that is because we asynchronously are processing multiple files at the same time across different projects. The other thing that's good about this RabbitMQ queuing system that we used is that it can handle failover. So as I was saying, when the jobs get submitted to the queues, since they get written to disk first before the job gets worked on, it can handle different processes failing, the entire thing shutting down. It can handle the server going down and then being rebooted. And then what'll happen is the queue, as soon as the services come back up, will just start right where it left off. So nothing is left undone. Behind the scenes, we have logging for all of this, and to manage what's happening on the different queues, if anything gets stuck for some reason, and it has an interface that comes with RabbitMQ. Everything, the whole system, its settings, managing of files, everything sits in MongoDB database, which is not a relational database, but a document database. This gives us the flexibility to be able to handle the different types of data and different schemas that are going to get thrown at this, and its ability to scale to large data sets and take up a lot less space than a traditional relational database. Also, if in the future, it can be scaled vertically if needed or horizontal. The Mongo database has been around probably over 10 years now. It's a very popular database to use. There's drivers the nice thing is drivers for every language you can think of. Ours is everything is built on C#, except for our reporting. We actually ended up using, for a report module there, we ended up using Node.js and a module that Google actually puts out, which is Puppeteer, which actually lets you be able to run instances of Chrome in memory. What that gives us is the flexibility to design notifications, reports, all in HTML as HTML templates. Then the report task handles offloading those jobs and using that Puppeteer to generate those PDF reports. We also, to help taxation with the system, we use our knowledge-based system. The knowledge-based system is built on WordPress using MySQL. And what we did is we built an interface system to help them search across multiple articles. We seeded the knowledge base with details of how to use the system. It also gives two interfaces, or two ways to access it. There's a public way that the submitters can access it, and it's only articles for the submitter. And then there's the private, which is for taxation, is expanded, that shows how to use the system and lets you search across all the articles, tag them, and it also lets taxation be able to add new articles as they start using the system. They might come across different things, maybe to put together like a how-to article, or maybe how to add maybe a little more detail. They can edit the existing articles that are already in there that we supplied for them. And it's also navigated through using a table of contents. We also give them a tagging system to be able to tag the articles so they can create their own organizational structures for the articles. All right, I'm going to step through this. We're going to just do a quick run through of the application. This is the sign-in. This is the portal instance. Eesh, that's not what I wanted to see. Why is that doing that? Again. Sure that happens. Oop. You know what? Let me go back. So just to show you, this is obviously a test instance, but taxation, we have the dashboard. The dashboard shows all the active projects that they're working on. Kind of gives them an overview of where the project is at. It gives them a total overview of the project with a timeline from when it started to when it was accepted. It also gives an individual timelines for ad review, mat review, BLQ, and rare review. It gives them where they're at. There's different check statuses, so they usually go up to about 4 or 5 check statuses, and that means the back and forth. So let's say the first batch is all of the files. They check all of them. They find that maybe a handful need to be sent back. They check off the sheets that need to get sent back. An email notification gets sent back to the submitter. That becomes first check. And every time they do that process back and forth, the check increments up. Each one has a link to the main project page, admin review, and the TMR section. If you notice, some of them are linked and some of them aren't. It really controls depending on where you're at during the project. Dates will get added as reviews started and finished. let's jump into, this is what a brand new project would look like when they're added. This is the project info page. Again, we have the overview of where they're at. Obviously, we're at the very beginning, so we're waiting for sheets. Here is where they would assign who the submitter is. And you can have multiple submitters, and you can check off once you add them to send an email. What'll happen is the submitter will get an email letting them know, hey, you've been added to this project, with a link to let them know to click to log in. Once they click on it, that's when they'll set the password and they can get in and they can see the project. And they'll be able to start adding files. Also, you can add the reviewer. The reviewer is really anybody in taxation. This could have multiple people or just one person. You assign that person what they want to be. If you want them to do just ad review, or maybe that person does ad review in TMR. So it's just a way for taxation to be able to manage who does what. Very quickly, I'll just show you the we have manage users interface. Like Dave talked about, we have system users and we have public users. Really, public users they're not the public, they are submitters. So again, like you saw, taxation has to add them to a project to be able to get that notification, to be able to sign into the system. So taxation is the one that chooses who gets to sign in and submit files. So we have a section for system users, public users, the ability to see their profile, add notes, add any kind of information you want with them, whatnot. Send a reset password if need be, because they lost it or whatever. Disable, enable it. Public users here, contact information. They can even, once they're logged in, they can upload a picture if they want, so you know who you're talking to. A lot of the times, the submitters that are submitting or work on the same town, throughout the years. So if taxation usually knows this, so you can assign a town to them. That will then just assist taxation to, when they're adding reviewers in the project, it'll automatically get listed in the list here. If they're not part of the town, you can always go to all and pick a user that hasn't been added to the town. Just very quickly, you can add notes to the project. You can change what type of project it is, if it's a formal revaluation. Tax map approval dates, this happens at the very end. Serial number is generated for them, or they can enter one in. This system obviously will be running, since it's going to take a little bit of time to get people acclimating to submitting digitally. Right now, this system and the older system, the paper system, will be running simultaneously as they transfer people over. Once a project is done, you can close the project. That project will then be not be accessible from the submitter once it's closed. And we also have an option for additional sheets throughout a project. Usually what happens is, sometimes maybe the submitter forgot to submit, files with details with condos on it or whatnot. That'll let them be able to resubmit those files. I'm going to jump over to the submitter page so you can take a look at that, what that looks like. If you go to submitter, let's say they have the notification, they click on it, they log in, they see this. This will give them, very basic, just 3 tabs, files, be able to upload information about the project. They cannot edit anything. This is just really all just for viewing, and some milestones. Throughout the project, taxation can, there will be automated milestones generated, such as, when the project's created, and also that, when ad review starts and the different phases start. But taxation can also add milestones for the submitter with due dates, so that it's a way to communicate the different sections, milestones in the project. You can do filtering, as you know, there's different status levels. You can do searches, custom ranges for dates. It comes in very handy. In the file section, it will give the submitter, there's basic, you know, since we're doing digital, files need to be, we're only accepting DXF and PDF. Reason being is DXF is a common format that can be created or exported out of AutoCAD and MicroStation. And PDF is really a representation of what that map would look like if it was plotted out. And the reason we want that is because the system tries its best visually in the site, you'll see later, to be able to mimic what that looks like, but it can't do it 100%. So there are certain things that you can only really look at a PDF to see, you know, line widths outside of the sheet, title block, north arrow, things like that. And we didn't want to be, didn't want to have to recreate everything that was in AutoCAD, obviously, because really you're only going to get that if you have the AutoCAD version you're using with the pen settings and everything that goes along with that. So that's why we have a PDF. The PDFs have to be named in a certain fashion. So you have municipal code, and then we have the sheet number that follows it. That helps, obviously, so that we can do some basic checks. So, you know, we check like, you know, make sure they're submitting to the right town. You know, they're not putting, you know, the wrong town over for some reason. We also check, obviously, file extensions. You can't just upload anything you want. It has to be DXF, PDF. And that also helps with breaking up the sheets and be able to name them, obviously, so they know what they're looking at. Also, what type of sheets they are. Is it a cover sheet, a key sheet, a detail sheet, sub sheet? We also have links for them here to be able to download the template for for state taxation, for tax map template, for the layers. We also have given them a link to the help that I was talking about earlier. This is more detail about how to submit the sheets. Obviously, since this is going to be pretty new and people aren't used to it, we have articles in here that we've submitted, what we expect, to be able to pull that information out. There's a standard we've implemented to be able to put in the attributes as block cell attributes, to have the SSN, block number, qualifier, and those different information in there. Also, what layers those different attributes need to be on. We also provide a template for them so that they can download it and use that template right away to start creating their tax map. There's also other articles in here explaining the workflow for submitters, you know, what happens when they submit a sheet, where it goes, what that looks like, what a pass or fail looks like, and how that ends up to eventually get the project approved. It also explains at the different, like the admin review automated checks. Like I was saying before, they need to be within New Jersey State Plain and also within the town. They also, those cells attributes that I was talking about that stores the attribute information in the CAD drawing, you know, those standards need to be in there and followed for the sheets to get properly processed. And again, the nice thing is this is a CMS system, so taxation, if they feel like they need to add more to it, they can, or clear up the existing articles that are there. And it goes through the different sections that the submitter sees, like the file, tab, info, milestones. and how to use that, just the use also of the application. It also explains just the kind of emails they're going to get for notifications throughout the process of the project. The files can be either dragged to it, and each sheet needs to have a PDF file to it. You can drag a bunch of files if you want. If excuse me, if only a PDF is pulled to it, it just assume that the data for that is inside the parent folder. Here we go. Once the person has uploaded, I'm not going to upload all of them, but once the person has uploaded all the sheets, the process, they can hit start upload. This just lets them know, again, links to what they expect to be able to pass the admin review through the automated checks. Lets them know that the browser only needs to stay open while it's uploading. And also verify that these are all the sheets. This is not the last time they can add sheets. They just, but we like to, hopefully the first time they upload it, it's good. But we did, like I showed you, give taxation the ability to be able to upload missing sheets if they need to. By clicking that, it starts uploading asynchronously. So it uploads a couple, like about 3 files at a time. During the process, they can cancel the upload if they want. We have safeguards where if they try to close it, this will come up to not let them, close the session. After a file is uploaded onto the system, it waits until all of them are processed or uploaded. Once they are all uploaded, as you can see, they switch over to a processing. So right now, it went through that whole system, the queuing system. That's where it's at right now. Jobs got created. Those jobs got sent to admin review section. And now all of the files have been processed. If there were errors, you would get a little, it would tell you there was an error with a detailed link of what that error is. And it could be a bunch of things. It could be, outside of the boundaries of New Jersey. It could say that it couldn't generate any parcels, and then maybe some additional errors. Maybe it's missing a layer or something. But it looks good. So we're going to flip back to what the taxation sees. Let me go to this one here. So in taxation, this is actually all of North Bergen. I didn't want you guys sitting through that. This is what they get. There's a list of all the sheets that are on here. On this page, they'll have the sheet status for each sheet, and what they have is access to the PDF, what the sheet types are. Like I talked about before, there's different check statuses, so that means there's different revisions. They have access to those different PDFs, and at what check status they got submitted. This is also the status of, and this is for taxation when they're working on the sheets. So if you go over to sheet 4, this is the checklist for admin review. If you notice at the very top, there's a legend where there's user tasks and automated tasks. The icons with the gears, those are the automated ones, the little people or the manual ones. The automated ones run through it and set if it's a pass, warning, fail, or if it doesn't apply to that one, to this sheet. We check for the proper spatial. The ones in red are the 2 that I talked about before that need to pass before it even gets to taxation. The other ones are like sheet, as long as the numbering of the sheets are consecutive, making sure there's no duplicate sheets, following standard layer numbering. If it finds an issue the system will automatically put in what it couldn't find. Also, taxation can edit this list too if they want to add some more notes to that. Also, let's say, for an example, this sheet file standard layer naming, and it says it's missing this layer. Taxation, let's say, says that's not really a big deal. It's not really a warning. Let's just pass it. What you'll notice is it looks a little bit different. Everything in the system can be overridden by taxation. We want to keep it flexible, and we don't want the automation to be the final ruling. When they override that, it'll just let them know and kind of keep a record of, well, the automation said it was a warning, but you want to pass it, so that's fine. And that lets the people know that, you know, that was just changed in case this issue comes up again. It also processes the parcels for each sheet and grabs that attribute information. This information comes from those attribute cells that I talked about earlier. It does a check on each one, looking for duplicates. It also, this one doesn't have any errors, but if it did, it would flag errors. Errors that we look for are like multiple attributes and parcels, or attributes with no parcels. Also, attributes that have multiple, or a parcel that have multiple attributes in them. It will flag all those type of errors. There's a whole mapping component to the system. And what we did was, if you saw in that list of technology, we tried to mimic what a CAD look or feel would look like if you were looking at AutoCAD, so that when they're communicating back and forth with submitters, you know, they have the same reference. Like I said before, we tried to mimic as much as we can what this sheet would look like in a CAD interface. If you notice, things change, the line types are changing on the fly. I don't know if you could tell that in the video, but what we did was all the data you see in here is vector data. In the background, we used, we converted the DXF files, we converted them into GeoJSON. Well, we convert them in a couple different formats, but we convert them into GeoJSON so that we can bring it into this map interface. We use Mapbox's web map viewer framework to be able to load the GeoJSON as vector data. So everything is live. What's great about that is you can interact with the data. So obviously this has, let me just go over like what the different functionality some of this map, this page can do. You can do panning. If you hold down the right, you can do rotation also, which is pretty cool. Comes in handy, especially when you're looking at something like this, where the text is rotated. It tries to mimic it as best as it can, but again, you'll see a little like that off-centered of the blocks sometimes, and the text might be a little bit off. Again, we're not trying to mimic it 100% correct like a printed map, but we're trying to get it as close as we possibly can. If they want to see if it matches up, we always give them access to the original PDF. And in there, they can take a look to see if things match up or if they see an inconsistency. There's different, you can also do zoom boxes, which is cool. You're panning however you want. There's a north over here, so it puts it back. So it brings it, it's always the drawing is always shifted so that north is up. We give them a help to just show them through some of the, since they're not used to having to deal with the maps digitally, just tools to help them zoom, pan, rotation. We can even do shift rotation by incrementing, by holding the shift down, whatnot. On the left, you'll see there's tools. We have tools for sheets, cross-off tool. The cross-off tool is to mimic, they had a whole system where they would go through and mark off things with markers. We wanted to give them something, tool to reflect that, measurement tool, and the system also can georeference images, the PDF image. So if I start with sheets, right away, since if the data is correct, obviously, and the right spatial location, if all the sheets are spatially in the correct location, we can, you know, assume some things, right? We can build an extent around it, a box, around all the sheets. We can then figure out which sheets are next to which. So when we load up those sheets, we can do a spatial query and say, hey, these are the sheets that are surrounding this current sheet. And since everything's digital, we can dynamically load that stuff in. We bring it in right next door. We could take a look. This process was usually done by taxation by, you know, laying it out and putting it together, you know, which was a little bit laborious depending how large your table was. But in here, you can switch on all the different sheets surrounding that sheet. Able to zoom in, take a look. You also have access to, again, this, if everything's closed and we have information, we can bring in the polygons. And this is behind the systems, a file database is created for every single sheet, and all the attribute information is put into that. You can see how they line up. This comes in handy for when if the taxation is looking to see if there's errors. You'll be able to see that the line work is missing. Let's say if this didn't close, you could actually shut this off. This is the line work for the parcels, and if it didn't close, you wouldn't see this line right here. So it's an extra step, you know, it's something different since we're digital, or since we're dealing with digital now. They can see when things are closed or not. This will, you know, expectations will, or you know, brought up because the line work needs to be clean. Obviously, it needs to be spatially correct. All the information actually needs to be there. It doesn't. It can't just look good on the sheet. So this will help them see the sheets around it. You can also bring in the parcels from neighboring sheets if you want. You can also, let's see, have control over the different CAD layers. So we've grouped the layers just like they are in the standards Excel sheet that's provided by taxation. You know, we have the annotation, buildings, boundaries, floods. So if it's a little busy, we turn it off. We can take a look at that, just the line work. Also, if we're just working on certain things, you know, maybe we can shut off a couple things here and there. If I can find something here, dimensions. There we go. Dimensions here. And these are the individual layers that are in there. Again, this reinforces that they are putting the data on the correct layers, and that and if they're not, they won't shut off. So a good way to check would be you turn off the CAD layers, and if anything's on, such as this, that means it wasn't on the standard. But if you notice, the reason it's on is because we have added through this process, we have added new layers to the standard to be able to handle condos information. So that's condo information. All right, so let's shut that off. What you can see is, let me show you the other tools here real quick. Like I said, we try to mimic their marker tool. So if they want, they can check dimensions, let's say, to know that they looked at it, or that they checked these blocks. You can do a sketch too, actually, which comes in handy. There you go. If you know, you can uncheck it, obviously. That's the cross off tool. We also give them, since everything's vector based, we created a snapping mode So there's a live snapping mode that's actually, as you move your cursor, it's snapping to the line work. It's the nice thing about having vector data in the map. We gave them like, you know, in AutoCAD, you have the ability to snap to endpoints, which we gave them. If you hold the control down, you'll notice as I bounce around and move the cursor, it will only go to the endpoints now. This will come in handy for measurement. So if you want to measure between these two right here, it's within tolerance. We also give them the ability to measure the area. So if you want to measure the area, you can just use the snapping tool to lock onto those corners. And that lets them check the area to make sure it actually is 1.26 acres. These are tools that we built on top of Mapbox Viewer. So this is custom for them. So and also, if you notice the snap snaps to any layer, we just added some custom ability to be able to snap only to certain layers if they wanted to, like boundaries, easements, those type of layers. Georeferencing. This comes in handy. Here, let me shut off the other one real quick. This comes in handy if they want to see the PDF behind the tax map. So why would you want to see that? Well, there are certain attributes in AutoCAD files that don't have a spatial equivalency. So they usually sit, and there's different modes in AutoCAD. There's model mode and paper space. Model mode is really where the data is, the line attributes, center lines, all that information. And paper space is usually where the north arrow is kept, title blocks, any information outside of the sheet is kept, so they can't see any of that stuff. So if they want to make sure that stuff lines up correctly, either with other sheets or with itself, in the north arrow, we've given the ability to georeference right within the web browser. So let me do that real quick. This does a 3-point georeference. And again, this uses our handy dandy snapping. And let's pick that spot. Right. Once all the points are picked, start georeferencing. Behind the scenes, it's using GDAL and some raster tools to take those points that I picked, and take that image and create and warp it so that it can match the sheet. So what you'll notice is it adds it in automatically. If you go back to sheets, it also adds it in as another processed layer. So they can go back, they don't need to do it every single time. Obviously, if done well, everything matches up good. But now we can see the north arrow. We see north arrow. We can see the surrounding line work. We can see the surrounding text. We can also take a look at the title block if they need to look at it. Again, we can rotate this just like we did before. Take a look at some things. This is just another tool to help them streamline their process and try to replicate what they were doing manually. One last thing, the map viewer also gives them a table at the bottom. This lets them be able to build out their report. So as they're going through, they can fill out issues that they might see. And also, we loaded in their book for codes. So all their codes are accessible now. They're also searchable. So let's say they're looking for some the preparation statement or legend. There you go. There you go. Do preparation. Type in that or type in legend. There we go. There's a code for that. And they can also add in whatever notes, and just continue on. They just keep adding, building their report as they go along. That is to the top, and it keeps pushing it down so that what they're working on is always within view. This comes in handy so that, let's say, they go through that first check, they get the sheet back, they go back to this, they can click on it and say, oh, okay, this has been fixed, so we're going to move this to fix, and then they can look at it in the fix tab, and and then they can go down and use it kind of as a checklist to see what's been fixed and what hasn't. They can also go in here and delete and export. Anything you see with the table can be exported to Excel, so they're not locked to the system or dependent on just the system. Real quick, I'm just going to jump. I know we've been talking for a while here, so I'm just going to jump to some. Obviously, this is a list. These are the parcels. These are all the parcels. We created just real quickly, we created a table to be able to basically jump through thousands of records within a couple seconds, so that it mimics Excel access. It's familiar to them. Here's that error I was talking about. We've also marked so that they can added links, so they can jump right to the map for them to take a look at that sheet. Let's see here, jump to the TMR real quick. TMR is the same interface when they jump to that phase. Same interface, except they have access to Railroad and the tax fact review report that you saw that I was building. They have access to PDF. Now the checklists in TMR is a lot longer. So this one has a lot more checks in it, obviously. So what we did was we created groups out of them using the markers, the chapters in the book that they have for taxation that they use, so they can reference that directly. We also use the same verbiage. So now it's like they have their entire book in the system, and we turned it into checklists basically. Just like the add review, you have pass, warning, fail, NA, and they can add notes to every single one. For automated ones, notes will get added automatically in there. This one couldn't find the sheets. Some of the automated checklist items that we've done for them is consecutive numbering, making sure position of sheet numbers, such as when you're looking at the layout, that they're in the upper right hand corner and the lower right hand corner. We check title block information. We make sure it's the right town. We make sure all the text is in there that's supposed to be in there. We also make sure every lot is closed and every closed lot has a lot number. We check if a sheet is near or is on a border. We check to see if there's a border line. We let them know, hey, we can't find a border line, so the automated check will let you know that. It also checks for the text that goes along with the border lines. It checks for lot acreages, any lot over 1 acre. It checks to make sure it actually has text in there for those lots. Condo qualifier formats. Again, that's why using cells to capture the attribute information is important, because right now that condo information is not on the tax map. So we use those cells to capture that information. Those are just a handful. There's a bunch more automated tasks that we have in here that runs through here and helps them be able to speed up the process. And again, they set the progress. So if you set that to progress, or let's say complete, right? They can't set it complete. That's the nice thing. So other things, we have safeguards. So obviously they need to check through every single one. So you can't set it complete until you actually check through every single checklist item. So again, just helping them doing QA/QC on themselves, I guess, and making sure everything's complete. So we set that as in progress. If you go back, you'll notice it's set there. Again, they have access to different revisions of the PDFs in case they've gone through a couple checklists. This also, the little red check marks let them know which ones have errors, where they were found. Let's jump to the BOQ. BOQ has to do obviously with taking the mod 4 data, matching that up with the partial data that was just generated. And we take that, we take the mod 4 data, we let them upload an Edmunds format text file or zip file, map those fields, and process that information. We give them an interface, just like the other tables. We're using the same table that the custom JavaScript widget that we created for them to be able to jump through thousands and thousands of records, you know, very quickly. We also gave them the ability to filter with all kinds of different operators to be able to filter that data. And you can create compound filters if you want. So let's say you're looking for, I don't know, a lot that has, I'm just going to guess on this one. All right, so this is all blocks that are 25 that contain a lot with 5 in it. You can get more particular, obviously. It shows all of the mod 4 fields, so all 90 plus fields are in here. This can get a little overwhelming sometimes, especially if they're only looking at core fields. So we give them tools to be able to manage the fields. Core fields are really all the fields that were mapped when they loaded the mod 4 file. So that we're narrowed down the fields to this. And you can seamlessly jump through here and take a peek at all the data. Now, in this BOQ format, we have 2 major tabs. We have the raw mod 4 tab. That is what the file looks like when it gets uploaded and nothing has been done to it. There's a process, and once it goes through a process, the results end up in the final mod 4 tab. And what that does is it takes the additional lot fields or additional notes fields for 1 and 2, and what happens is a lot of information sometimes gets put into these 2 fields, and what they are like additional lots that have broken out from that lot. So what's handy is if you can break that out into multiple records, so it expands those lots. That's this BOQ system. It does that. It will, unfortunately for North Bergen, they don't have any. They don't use it, but a lot of towns do use that additional lots 1 and 2 field to put data in there. When it expands it, it will highlight it in green. You can see all the different expanded records. It will check for errors in case, let's say, there was junk in this file and it just couldn't parse that data. It's pretty good at handling a lot of junk. But it will come up with some errors if they've put just random things in there. It will check for duplication. It will also check for original duplication that happens very rarely. Also, excluded items are not shown, but you can bring them back in. Excluded items are like records like cell phone towers, billboards, things like that. You can show them or you can hide them. It gives them that ability. Again, they can build compound queries off of this. Everything with a table in here has a filter in it. They can export it out to Excel. Again, manage the fields, so any core fields if they want, or whatever fields they want to look at in here. Turn that stuff off. The settings, if you notice, there's no save anywhere. We tried to make it so that whenever they change something, it automatically gets saved. Something that has to do like a user preference, like visible fields, that's specific to the user. So each user could have, their different fields, hidden or shown. Different things like that are saved to their user profile. Reports are generated from this. Unmatched BOQ report is generated for them. BOQ issues. So these are basically, either the data was in the mod 4 and the system couldn't find it in the attributes, so it flagged it as not being on the map. And again, this is why this cells attribute block is so important, because it holds all that attribute information, and we can use that to build the database to then do the checks against mod 4. And then there's the other way around. There might be data on the map that's not in mod 4 for some reason. It also adds in these reports the additional lots, so they can see maybe the data they're looking for is in the additional lots. Also, they can go in here and right-click and edit key codes. And again, we've taken all their key codes and we put it into the system, and they can assign those keys to each record. What they're doing here, they're editing and the report. The system generates a report for them, and then they can edit the report as they go along and add some notes in here. And again, they can jump through thousands of records or whatever it is that they need to do. They can also just manage what's in the report by clicking that and just being able to exclude it or put it back. This also has filters to see what records were excluded. So those type of tools also filters out if they just want to look at stuff that wasn't on the map or is on the map and not in the mod 4. We give them tools to do that also. This is just key sheet checks. It also checks key sheets to make sure the block numbers are on the key sheets automatically. That is actually looking at text information to do that. And again, everything's exportable to Excel or, some options without exclusions and whatnot. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can happen when the mod 4 is getting processed. Like we said, new records can get generated, errors could happen. We have a whole logging system in here that tries to generate as informative as possible what happened during that BOQ process. Again, they can upload a new file whenever they want and run it all over, and all those reports will get generated for them. So they can do that whenever they want. And that's pretty much it, I think. Let me show you the help system from a taxation's point of view. From taxation's point of view, there's obviously a lot more articles in here. We've seeded it with how to use the application, what's expected for different pages, the different workflows, how to create, how to start off, how to create a new project. And Matt Taxation has used this, and he's used it a lot, and he's gotten through most of the process, so it helps him out a lot. To field those questions for other people when he has other people in his staff do it. How to set up a project, manage different stages, all that stuff's in here. And again, they can add articles in here in the search. It will get added to the search. So if they're looking for something on how to let's say reset a password, there you go. That comes up, sends them right to it. Reset password, walks them through articles on how to walk them through that and what the email notification will look like. So the system will update itself, the search index, as new articles get added. You can print from here, obviously. People like print copies. Share it out. Oops, that opened my email. I don't think you want to see my email, but that'll share it out to an email. So that the system is, there's a lot of articles in here. It's pretty broad. It's pretty robust. And and gives them a way to use the system and be able to add new.
All right, I think we may have lost Donnie for a second there.
Stuff
Oh,
out of here.
yeah, Donnie, you were broken up there a little bit.
Hopefully not too much. This thing.
All right, Donnie, anything else to show before we open it up to questions?
No, I think I'm good here. I'm just trying to get out of this here. Oh, there we go.
All right, so let me just finish up. I just wondering if anyone we have some time to answer some questions. So if anyone has any questions or comments, you can use the raise your hand and I'll call on you. No questions? Okay. I think Jocelyn has a question. Jocelyn?
Hi. Will this process also update the parcels database that's put out by the state?
Well, the intention was to generate parcels so that could be done. Right. The application itself does not directly update the parcels, but the idea was to try to get good parcels at the time of submission of the tax map. And it does create a file geodatabase to allow that to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Andy had a question?
Yeah, well, really, first, just a comment. Wow, this is really impressive.
Thank you.
You know, having been involved in all that work on the committee, setting out the requirements of this, when this went out for the work to be done, I didn't really expect that they were going to be able to get such a complete system. So I'm really, really impressed. I can retire happily now. This is done. This is great. And yeah, to answer Jocelyn's question, the main goal from taxation's point of view was to streamline their review process for tax maps, and the rest of us in the room all had our own motivations for wanting this to happen. And certainly on the part of most of the GIS people, the primary goal was to improve the process of getting parcel data created. And so, yeah, we're going to be taking those outputs from the Division of Taxation, and we haven't worked out the details, but we're going to be pulling those over and incorporating them into what we publish as parcel data for sure. And yeah, I think I can speak for anybody who works with parcel data. I think we're all really looking forward to when this becomes real. It's still going to be a while. So the other comment I want to have from the state standpoint, so the whole tax map process is governed by regulations. From the output of the committee, division staff were drafting modified regulations to incorporate digital submission and processing as part of the regulations. And it's been a while since I talked to them about that, but at the time, and I'm guessing this hasn't changed, they're not intending to require digital submission. They don't think they have the juice to require that, because there's a fair cost involved there on the municipal side, and you know, they can't impose that cost on the municipalities. So hard copy submission is still going to remain an option, but we're all hoping that the municipal people will see the advantage of doing it digitally. Certainly the second time around, doing it digitally would be a whole lot cheaper for them than doing it the way they've been doing it. So we're hoping that'll motivate them. But the other thing, just to control everybody's expectations, I don't know if you noticed it fly by on the demo that Donny was doing, but the signature block on that tax map said this tax map supersedes the last official tax map that was approved in 1995. And that is not atypical for a municipality to go that long between official review of their tax map. And so, you know, it may take a while for this to really roll out into our lives, but we're hoping that if they get used to the digital process, then the whole review process is a lot less painful, and we're hoping to shorten up that cycle between official review of the tax map. So congratulations and kudos to Civil on building this, and then you know, hopefully it'll get to be part of our life soon.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I saw a hand went up and then a hand went back down. Was that Joe Fox? You have a question?
Yeah, hi everyone. Dave, Donny, thanks so much for that presentation. And like I can just reaffirm, wow, I guess we've been waiting for something like this for a long time. But at the same time, you know, being responsible for you know, maintaining the city of Newark's tax maps and working with our tax assessor's office, I mean, being able to conform to this submission and review process is something that really is taking a lot of work, a lot of attempts at coordination. I mean, just we're in the process now of submitting our tax maps, paper copies. You know, we have about 240 sheets, and we've been maintaining them digitally for probably the last 20 years in Bentley MicroStation. And we've been trying to kind of, as each time we go through, we maintain the maps basically daily, and I publish them in a PDF format annually. But as far as getting, you know, state approval, we've had to do that twice for revalve purposes only. And I really haven't been able to determine when was the last time we got an official certification of our tax map. So the point is, we've been trying to get it to the point so that I can retire and move on, because I mean, it's really important to get these maps, you know, really tight, and so that they can really integrate into a GIS platform environment and really help for as far as just planning and everything like that. But if I can just get some contacts, I need to have a contact, because we deal with the Department of Treasury, we have been, and you know, I need to get some technical contacts here in order to be able to get our schema set, because we've been kind of working towards that, but I need a set, you know, set schema, so I know exactly what it is we have to, you know, as we go through this review. I want to get ahead of it rather than to come back and have to, you know, catch up again. So if somebody, Donny, if you can give me a contact, I didn't quite hear if you were with the state, but I would appreciate a state contact who can really help guide us through this this digital submission, and how this is going to be, what we can do to make it so that we integrate with this new review process. That's all I got there. Thanks. Any feedback would greatly be appreciated.
Right, great. I appreciate that, Joe. This is Dave Kunz. Yes, we can, you know, we can provide you with with a contact at Taxation, and then as far as the schema goes, or the standard, that was something that the committee had done from just about from the onset, way back when, and that is also posted on the Division of Taxation's website, and we can do that. I can provide you with the links, you know, to that as well, off the Division of Taxation's website.
Thanks, Dave. We got all that. Just need, you know, some further guidance.
Sure, absolutely. Any other? Thank you for your comments, Joe. Any other comments or questions or? All right, so I don't see any other comments. So I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us today. I will again open up to any general comments or announcements that anyone may have who may have joined a little later than we opened up the comment section. Chris McLean.
Andy, when you get some clarification on Daniel's law and how it pertains to data like the mod 4 or things like that, will you pass that along to us?
Sure, yep.
All right, great. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, I'd like to thank everybody for spending some time with us today. This is obviously we're at the end of the year, and this is our last meeting for 2020. We have our next Geospatial Forum meeting will be in March. It may or may not be virtual, it may or may be in person. So we'll look out for that. But again, I'd like to thank everybody for spending some time with us today. And from we have a new board, half of a new board coming starting January. So I'd like to welcome all those individuals. And I'd like to thank everyone and hope everyone has a very healthy and very safe holiday weekend.